What is the most shocking thing you ever found about someone on a first date? Story 1. Met online via Tinder, talked for a few weeks before eventually meeting up. We had great chemistry over text and I was excited/nervous to finally meet him. Lucky for me, that chemistry transferred well in person. We went on a nice hike and then out to dinner afterwards. I was pretty excited about everything overall. When we got to the restaurant, however, the hostess asked for his name to put on the waiting list and he gave her a different name than what was on his profile. I asked him why he did that and he said he just likes to do it for fun sometimes. Odd, but not an immediate red flag. I've had friends give different names for their Starbucks orders, etc. Throughout the dinner I was joking with him saying I didn't believe the name on his profile was his real name. Then when the bill came out and he took out his credit card I asked to see it. He showed me, but purposefully hid his last name with his finger. I, still not suspicious at all, jokingly asked him why he was hiding his last name, and to my surprise responded with, "I don't want you to look me up online." Okay, finally a red flag. It didn't take much prodding for him to finally admit that he was currently involved in a lawsuit for getting solely involved with several minors. He was a basketball coach for a girls' high school team. He insisted it was only texts and the girls involved started it. One even showed up to his house uninvited, etc., basically saying it was not his fault at all, but obviously I did not believe him. It was a punch to the gut considering how well things had gone up until that point. I never saw him again. He ended up going to jail for 3 years and then contacted me when he got out. I responded with a fat nope. And never heard from him again. Story 2. More than one guy bragged about their drug use on first dates, entirely unprompted. Glad they did, since I'm not interested in dating an active meth user, but man, not sure what vibe I was giving off that year to bring them out. Story 3. That someone thought it was okay to correct me when I said, "I think I'll have the yam fries." He gave me a lecture about how I need to be more confident and sure in my selection. Date was over at that point, he just didn't know it. Story 4. I once went out on a date with a guy who worked at my local grocery store. He came off as very nice, if a bit socially awkward. At some point between appetizers and dinner, he asked me what I had studied in college, which was biology. He proceeded to rant about how he doesn't believe in medical science. Now, I thought that maybe he meant that he's against big pharma or something. No. Upon asking some clarifying questions, I found out that he genuinely meant that he doesn't think that doctors have any specialized knowledge. Hospitals are really just mass crematoriums, and any effects that people have from medicine is because of the placebo effect. This was not even his most absolutely bonkers opinion that he felt it appropriate to lead with on a first date, but this is what tipped me off that I would not be seeing him again. Naturally, I ghosted him after the date, but I did get a text from him a few weeks later apologizing for being out of contact because he had gotten into a car accident and had been in the hospital. I think I said something like, "Wow, that must have been really hard for you, since you don't believe in medicine." Story 5. That he didn't want to be empathetic when telling his patients they have cancer, he just wanted to blurt it out. He thought this was hilarious. He was in Yale Med School to become an oncologist and was complaining about bedside manners courses. Story 6. When I was 21, I went on a date with a guy 10 years older than me. We had been texting for about a week and everything seemed fine. When he pulled up to pick me up, not making that mistake again, he had 2 car seats in the back seat. He immediately informs me that he has 2 children with 2 different exes and recently had a vasectomy because he doesn't want to pay more child support. I pointed out that he never mentioned that he had kids when we were texting and he replies with, "Well, a lot of women are looking for guys without kids and I knew you wouldn't say yes to a date if I told you." The date ended with him insisting that I spend the night at his place and meet both of his kids the very next day. I noped out of that situation very quickly. Story 7. That his best friend is the person who is in jail for hitting my best friend with a car. Yes, he knew before the date and didn't think it was necessary to tell me beforehand. He was offended when I left the restaurant. Story 8. Guy told me he wanted to be a human toilet on the first date. Like, wanted me to poop in his mouth. Guess I'm glad we got that out of the way first. I noped right out of there. Story 9. I once went on a date with a guy who seemed really nice, but as the night went on, he started getting really aggressive and confrontational with strangers we encountered. He would shout at people who bumped into him, and even started a fight with a stranger. Story 10. Once had a guy admitted he served time for domestic violence and then proceeded to put all the blame on her. I blocked him immediately. I wish I was kidding, but seriously, what the EFF is wrong with PPL nowadays? If you made it this far, please consider pressing the subscribe and like button. Now continue to the video. Story 11. That he's a white supremacist. For context, I'm brown, angry face. In the end it seemed he just wanted to hook up with me but spent the entire day talking about white people being superior to all other races. Terrible tactic. Obviously I never spoke to him again, lol. Story 12. He just got out of prison for murdering his wife. He set the house on fire with her in it to collect the insurance money. Both of his parents passed away while he was in prison. So sad. No second date. Story 13. I was talking to a guy on Tinder, and we hit it off pretty well. He seemed like a gentleman, and he was very sweet, very attractive. We decided to meet for a couple of drinks and play pool one evening. He was very charming, and we talked all night and enjoyed ourselves. Everything felt natural, not awkward, and I actually started to like him. Toward the end of the date, he told me that he felt comfortable with me and wanted to take things further, but he had something to confess. He told me, all too casually, that he had just gotten out of prison for kidnapping his daughter and 2 counts of attempted murder for trying to run over the mother with his SUV and for trying to stab his stepfather. In defense, he claimed, oh, and he was also part of a white supremacy gang, and if I wanted to be his big nope. Story 14. I met this cop on Bumble. Tall, dark, handsome, and kind of mysterious. We chatted for days and video messaged multiple times before going out. We really hit it off. He seemed so normal and cool. Our first date, he tells me that he's a Revolutionary War reenactor and often wears a kilt on and off the battlefield. Okay, not as shocking as the other posts. But still surprised me and makes me laugh to this day. Story 15. First go at online dating. First glance tells me he stole someone's picture. Whatever, I'm here, I'll have lunch. We sit down, and he tells me he's not allowed to see his kids, but sometimes his mom lets him when they visit her. Can you guess why? I knew he had kids, but he never indicated he was not an active part of their lives. Freaking POS. Story 16. He seemed pretty shy but normal prior to meeting, and not very long into the date he told me that he experiences frequent manic episodes and during the last one he masturbated 9 times in one day. Story 17. That he'd our word. Okay, he didn't call it that, but he was happy to explain it in detail and it sure sounded like our word. I knew where the brother of the girl he was talking about worked, so I did some investigating and he sure called it our word too. Story 18. Drove an hour to meet the guy at a bar in his town, where he worked. Red flag 1, not the working at the bar, but having a first date at your workplace. He didn't want us to go in. Red flag 2. We bought drinks from the convenience store next door. Red flag 3. We then walked across the street to a park by the river, where we opened our drinks and started chatting. Whenever anyone walked by, he hid his drink below the table. Red flag 4. Because he then shared he was in AA. Red flag 5. But he wasn't an alcoholic. Red flag 6. Even so, he was leaving to go to rehab at the end of the week. Red flag 7. But he couldn't drive himself there, because his license was suspended. Red flag 8. However, he did drive himself to the date, because he didn't want to show up on a bicycle. Red flag 9. Sadly, I ended up going on 2 more dates with the guy. Suffice it to say, he had a whole garden of red flags. I was desperate at the time though, but I'm doing a lot better now, thank goodness. Story 19. That he had very detailed and violent fantasies about a fictional woman he created in his poetry journal that looked just like me. I found this out because he brought the poetry journal on the date, wanting me to read it, thinking I'd be into it, based on my taste in music and clothing. No dude, I'm just scared now. Story 20. I met him on a night out, he seemed fun and normal. Met up with him a few days later for a date, casually mentioned he'd been a drugs mule, got caught and spent a year in a Colombian prison. He did look on the bright side though, as he could speak fluent Spanish. He also had 4 kids with 3 different women. As you'd probably guess, we are now married, such a catch. Story 21. I'd been talking to this girl in one of my classes for a bit. I found out she was also sapphic and almost instantly asked her out because I was super into her. I picked her up at her place, and the second she gets into my car, she makes a bunch of truly bucked up anti-Semitic jokes about my car and makes all these weird assumptions about my finances. I did not yet tell her I was Jewish. She just came out swinging because of my nice car and admittedly large nose. Some slight prodding led to her admitting to having some neo-Nazi views. Binge, how TF are you gay and a Nazi?